Hello. As some of you might know, I am a university professor in Bogota, Colombia. For the last week in my country, we have experienced some very difficult moments. We have had demonstrations all over the country against some decisions from our government um, that were not popular and were not designed taking into account the pandemic and the socioeconomic circumstances of the people from Colombia. Unfortunately, people in different cities, in different regions, decided to express their anger, their frustration, their despair. And although many people have been very pacific and they have just participated in very participative activities, there have been different situations that have affected our cities, our transportation, and unfortunately, we have lost lives of citizens who just wanted to express their opinion, and other citizens who were trying to protect and serve the public. And as a university professor at a faculty of education, I wonder how I was supposed to help, how I was supposed to make a contribution, how I was supposed to provide teachers, professors, students, people who might be looking for a way to understand what's going on, to make sense of the violence that we're living. Particularly one aspect of that violence that doesn't necessarily take place in the streets, but it takes place in social media. For the last week, we have been bombarded with images, messages, video clips, audio files expressing different points of view, some attacking the government, the police, the army, some others expressing opinions, arguments, some others telling us, describing what they were experiencing, what they were living. And at the end of the day, one cannot avoid or we cannot help but feel that it is too much violence, too much information, too many things happening at the same time. And there's a moment where you don't know what is right, what is wrong, what is true, what is false, what you're supposed to pay attention to or not. So I decided to record this video as a small contribution from a university professor working with undergraduate and graduate students in a faculty of education. And I think one way to help my students, teachers, colleagues, is to remind them about a topic that I find relevant and useful, which is media literacy. As all of us know, media messages are constructed, they are fabricated. This means that when we listen to a message, when we read a message, when we watch a message, when we receive or when we produce the message, we are constructing a very particular piece of information in which we use, of course, language in a creative way. we use different techniques, and we resort to different formats so that that message satisfies our needs, our interests. Now, if that is true, that every single media message is fabricated, is constructed, we also need to say that every single media message is produced or is fabricated or is constructed for particular purposes. And we need to understand that when we share, when we produce, when we listen, when we watch messages, what we are really paying attention to is a purpose. That purpose might be to inform, to persuade, to convince, to attack, etc. In other words, media messages are fabricated, are constructed as representations of social reality. But those representations show us particular perspectives, particular values of the people in charge of fabricating, constructing, producing those messages. And then it is our responsibility to be able to understand the message, to activate skills, strategies, to make sense of what is being presented, what is being described, what is being explained, and how that message fulfills certain objectives, purposes, goals. And also, as individuals, we need to activate a set of skills, beliefs, experiences that are going to help us make sense of messages. So that's why, because we have been receiving and sending and sharing and posting different kind of media messages, that I think media literacy is an issue that we need to go back, check, pay attention, and use in our daily lives, in our academic context, in our social media. As you might know, there are different definitions of media literacy, but all of them seem to have some commonality. Some aspects are common. I'm going to focus on the last definition that you can have a look at, that defines media literacy as the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act using all forms of communication. And here, it is important to notice that media literacy pays attention to different levels and dimensions. How much access and the quality of access that all of us have to media messages, but also the possibilities we have to examine, to analyze, to understand media messages. And once we have analyzed, understood, and processed media messages, to be able to evaluate, to assess their quality, their relevance, their accuracy. Now, as accessing, analyzing, evaluating are important elements of media literacy, but they're not enough. We also need to know how to create media messages and what happens when we decide to share, post, publish different types of media messages, and at the same time how to act, how to behave based on the media messages that we are producing, that we are sharing, that we are creating, that we are generating. Now, in other words, media literacy is a very complex ability that requires from us different abilities, different strategies, from the very moment we access media to the moment we're able to analyze that media, evaluate it, and then based on what we have analyzed, on what we have evaluated, on what we have accessed, maybe create or generate our own media messages and participate or act in media content. Now, because many of these messages that we are receiving, sending, sharing, posting are happening in platforms, in social media, it's important to remember the connection that media literacy has with online teaching and learning and on our new online systems platforms. So here, as teachers, as students, we should remember the importance of accessing um, media messages. We have options, we have possibilities. We can access different kinds of media messages, different kinds of media genres, books, articles, websites, videos, films, memes, gifs, etc. But no matter the kind of message, of media message that we are having access to, one of the most important elements is to have variety and diversity. Now, we also need to pay attention to how to analyze those media messages. Maybe we participate in an asynchronous threaded discussion where different people are making comments and we can collaborate on and make comments about what other people have said or have expressed, or we can work together online and then share digital annotation in groups, in pairs. We might even go one step beyond and generate or create our own media messages. We can use screencasting. We can use asynchronous videos like the one I'm doing this evening. We can write blogs, wikis. We can participate in chats. Very important is that we reflect, we assess, we evaluate, and based on that, we act. We can reflect, participating in synchronous discussions, asynchronous videos, writing, but we can also act in social media, participating in project-based learning, sending and receiving messages, emails, etc. Now here, as teachers, as students, we might wonder, okay, maybe I understand what media literacy is, and maybe I have some ideas of what I can do with my students, with my colleagues, with my classmates, and with myself to improve my understanding of media literacy. But what other options we have? Here I'm sharing some ideas from Hushman and Dewar in the year 2015. They provide us with some learning activities that we can use with prosumers, people who are producers and consumers of media messages. We can have them produce media. We can use Powtoon, Prezi, Screencast-O-Matic, Edpuzzle, Office. If you have Office, you can use photos. That is an element to generate your own videos. We can have the students work with blogs, and the options that we have are Blogger, WordPress, and others, of course, other possibilities. We can have them work with microblogging, Twitter, Instagram, video blogging, or vlogs. We can provide them with options such as Animoto, Flipgrid, Pear Deck, Nearpod. We can have them create podcasts with Podbean, Buzzsprout, VoiceThread. We can even promote the creation and the design of graphic novels and comic strips with Pixton and Bstrips. We can have them create detailed storytelling through Class Animaker, Storyboard That, write comics, or we can have our students, our classmates, our colleagues work with gaming. Educandy, Gamilab, Bamboozle, and other possibilities are out there as options, as strategies to help our students and ourselves and our colleagues produce and consume media messages. I want to finish with this framework, some questions that we should ask when we produce and we receive media messages. Who made this text? So that we can, from the social constructivism, understand the author, the intention, the purpose. How was this text constructed? That has to do what languages and what signs are put into use. How could this text be understood differently? That it's about audiences and positioning yourself. What values, points of views, ideologies are present or missing? That has to do with politics of representation. This is in favor of or against, blah, blah, blah. Why was this text created or shared? Who is responsible in terms of the production? An institution, a person? And finally, whom does this text advantage or disadvantage? Social and environmental justice. Well, I share here some basic ideas that I hope can help us in this moment. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Be safe.